You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the BioHealth Capital Region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis, your host for BioTalk. And we have one of the more unusual BioTalks that we've ever done today. I think our guests are from the farthest distance that we've ever recorded a BioTalk. And I have three individuals that are from Cape Town, South Africa. We're taping this live with them, but you're wondering, why are we doing a BioTalk with people from Cape Town, South Africa today? And very good reason. And we have Johann de Bruyn, who is the CEO of TASC, who attended our BioHealth Capital Region Forum last year, was so impressed with it that he decided to try to replicate our crab trap competition down in Cape Town, which he did. So they had a company and a student competition, and we have winners from both the company and the student competition with us on BioTalk today. We're going to introduce them a little bit later, but Johann de Bruyn is the CEO of TASC, and he's going to explain what TASC is, why he was in the United States in Rockville, Maryland, attending the BioHealth Capital Region, and how we got to this point in the BioTalk podcast today. Johann, welcome to BioTalk.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks for having us. Really a privilege.
Thank you for joining, and I appreciate your enthusiasm for what you attended at the BioHealth Capital Region Forum in 2023, and we're going to hope to see you again in 2024. But why don't we tell our listeners a little bit about TASC, yourself, and your background, and how we ended up here today?
Thanks a lot, Rich. TASC Applied Science, as we formerly known, is a multinational independent clinical site organization. We provide clinical trial solutions on the ground with doctors, with nurses across a multitude of sites. We've got 7 sites here in sunny South Africa, another one in the Netherlands, across actually a couple of therapeutic areas from oncology, infectious disease, vaccines, all inpatient phase 1 to 4 clinical trials. Went to the States because, as everyone knows, outside of North America, that's the starting or birthplace of most new medical innovations. The value chain starts on that side, so building up new relationships and making new friends. And your fantastic event was proposed to me and said, if you're there, please go and attend BioHealth Innovation Forum Week. And I did, and it really blew my mind on how just accommodating the whole event was versus some of the other much larger events, and how easy it was to engage with people. It was definitely immediately one of the events that goes into my diary very, very quickly in the new year. So you will definitely see me this year and next year. And then obviously moving on to the crab trap, the value chain starts in North America, and what a lot of startups and students and companies have difficulty with is market access. Being, as you said, the furthest point away from Maryland, it's very difficult sitting in the small little dot at the southern tip of Africa and getting that access to the big, massive American market. After the crab trap, there's some other countries from Europe there, and I thought Africa should be here. We should bring the talent that we've got to that side and expose them and also the Americans to us. That's where we came up with the idea to try and replicate the competition, obviously with consent from you guys and buy-in from your side. But that's where the idea was born, the fantastic event that you put up.
Before we talk about your centrifuge event a little bit, Johann, you didn't really tell the listeners a little bit about your background and how you got to TASC. So talk a little bit about your personal background first.
For my sins, I studied accounting, of all things, straight out of school, but just never had the personality to sit behind the laptop and look at spreadsheets the whole day long. And then got into company management, was part of a couple of larger corporate structures across Africa. And I just wanted to do something that makes a difference. And TASC at that stage was known as the epicenter of TB research globally, tuberculosis. And I approached them and joined them as first a commercial CFO. And then after that, I took over as CEO a couple of years ago with the idea of how do we bring more medicines to Africa? It's a relatively unknown market. Also, a lot of people have burnt their fingers in Africa because they don't know how to approach the African market. So it was my vision to really expand and diversify outside of our local market. So yes, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a PhD of any sorts, although I think I should do my PhD just so I can say doctor. But it's difficult in our industry not to be a doctor and engage with the very intelligent and overachieving people in this industry.
Well, thank you for that background. I'm not a doctor either, Johann. And I think we have one of our guests who's a PhD, Dr. Carla Eksteen, which we introduced in a second here, but we have a doctor represented here. I'm glad that you decided to try to enter the U.S. market. We're going to try to help you build relationships in the BioHealth Capital Region when you come again this year. But then one thing that evolved, you mentioned the crab trap competition, and you said, hey, Rich, what if we created our own business plan competition in South Africa? Would you be willing to entertain the winner, the crab trap competition in 2024? Sounded like a novel idea. And when you have two entrepreneurs talking to one another, it was an easy decision. So we said, go forward. And you created the Centrifuge business plan. So talk a little bit about that business plan competition. And we have two anxious winners who are willing to talk soon. And we're going to get to them as soon as you explain what Centrifuge is.
Let's start with the name. People outside of the science industry doesn't understand such a difficult name, centrifuge. I think if you've worked anywhere close to a laboratory, the centrifuge is such an important part of science. And it was all about that centrifugal force of separating different compounds through that force. We saw the pitch competition as a type of a centrifuge separating the competitors. But yes, after speaking to you, and thanks very much, we're not used to decisions being taken so quickly in South Africa or anywhere outside of North America. Usually the bureaucratic red tape drives you up the wall. But very graciously, yourself and your team said, yes, please, if you can pull it off, please go ahead. We started planning with our partners from EduFos and Westgrow, which is the same as your Department of Commerce in Maryland. And the discussion was not only to do the pitch event for the startup companies and entrepreneurs, but to have the student element as well, because at the end of the day, your students become your entrepreneurs and your startups at some point in time. For us to give them the exposure of the wide world out there, more than they just see on television and on YouTube, was extremely important. We planned it according to the crab trap model. It was our first year, and it was great to have you on board as a judge as well, to make sure that we get the right caliber of contestant and winner at the end of the day involved. But at the end of the day, our passion, the people involved in this, is to give Africa a little bit of a spotlight on the global stage, which is so important for us being away from everything. As you said, anything of significance is at least an 11-hour flight away.
Your first competition went off very well. Congratulations. You had excellent finalists in both categories, in the company and the student categories. And we have the winners from both the company and the student category with us on the BioTalk today. First of all, we have Ethan Hunter, who is the Chief Operations Officer of Immobazyme, who is the company winner. And Ethan, welcome to BioTalk.
What a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And listeners are going to be very interested to hear about your business and your company and how it evolved and a little bit about your background. But Johann, any introduction you'd like to make about Immobazyme or Ethan for the listeners first?
We're obviously thrilled that their company won at the end of the day. They've been slowly but surely making a big splash in the local scientific environment with the enzymes that they're fermenting for various purposes. I think the pitch that they did, which was quite specific, although the application for what the invention or products do is a lot wider in terms of diabetic ulcers and treating them to prevent amputation, was spot on and was so good for the competition and where we wanted it to be. And thanks to Ethan and Dominic, his founding partner, for the pitch and what you guys did. Ethan, yeah, you guys are amazing in Stellenbosch. You grew from a small office. I think you've taken new space now there in the office park where you are and just going from strength to strength. So I can't say it better than you can. So Rich, thanks very much for that one. But Ethan is the rock star that needs to enthrall us.
Well, Ethan, introduce us to yourself and then give us a little introduction on the company.
Johann, thanks for the words. It's been a good journey, and I think our reputation is slowly but surely starting to catch up with ourselves. So yeah, I'm Ethan Hunter, co-founder and current COO of Immobazyme. We founded the company, myself and two colleagues of mine, during our master's degrees here at Stellenbosch University. That was in 2019. And this was all based off some technology that we had created together to immobilize enzymes far more affordably than what was available on the market. And we patented this tech. That went successfully. We then quickly hit a bottleneck. In order to immobilize an enzyme, you need an affordable source of enzymes. And this created our first major pivot. And we started looking at precision fermentation as the core of our business. So this is the genetic modification of microbes. We primarily utilize yeast and bacterial expression systems, and we genetically modify these with genes of interest for enzymes, proteins, hormones, therapeutics. We then ferment and grow these cells up and purify the protein out. But this was quite a journey. 2019, I'm sure everyone is very, very aware this was right before COVID. And so founding a company in December of that year was met with many, many hurdles a couple months later. So the three of us actually ended up working in my little apartment here in Stellenbosch. My two colleagues would sleep over for about 2 weeks at a time, and we would sit on the floor, on the carpet, and build our prototypes, make our business plans, do our pitch decks. We actually did our first pitch right there on the floor with a university partner, which went great. And the university jumped on board, and it sort of became a bit of a rolling stone from there. Once COVID had given way a little bit, we were able to do a lot of research in the labs again, starting off in an old radioactive lab, actually. So it was decommissioned just for us, was as much a hole in the wall as you can possibly get. Grimy, no lights, three of us working there, really old, maybe 60s lab benches and furniture, and creating our first proof of concept. This ended up working out quite well for us, and a lot of tireless nights, sleeping bags on the floor, again, watching our little fermenter like it was a child of ours. We've managed to have a few fundraisers since then and have seen some really awesome expansion. So from the three of us founding, we are now sitting in 2024 with 12 employees. We've just secured 2 spaces. Well, we secured one last year. We've doubled up now at an office park in Stellenbosch, and this will come up to about 550 square meters of lab space. We have a full R&D facility, and we are full-time concentrated on our precision fermentation pipeline with a bit of scientific consulting just happening naturally along the way. And yeah, we produce enzymes, hormones, and therapeutics in a range of industries, as Johann briefed: cosmetics, food and beverage, paper and pulp, cellular agriculture. And now, hopefully, with some of the networks and the exposure from BioHealth Innovation, we're going to get a bit more of a knack for the therapeutics market.
Talk a little bit about your commercialization and some of your first target markets and really the theme of what your presentation was in the competition.
Creating our enzymes through this fermentation pipeline is a bit of a plug and play process, which is really helpful for us entering such a range of markets, and almost seems like we're spread quite thin across these sectors, but the crux of it all is the same. And so what we pitched in light of trying to enter the therapeutics market is a hormone that we produce. This is the epidermal growth factor. The pipeline for production is our genetic engineering of the yeast, and we have a great purification setup. But what's really interesting about EGF, epidermal growth factor specifically, is its treatment in diabetic wounds, specifically diabetic foot ulcers. And this is something that affects populations around the world. The United States will be as familiar, if not more familiar, with these ailments as we are here in South Africa, a diabetic foot ulcer can result in amputation of the limb or even death. And it affects quite a high percentage of those with diabetes. And the treatment is completely absurdly expensive. And so we looked at this alternative through our pipeline, through our proprietary tech, and we were able to reduce the cost of creating this hormone quite dramatically. So we proposed this as a new age treatment. Although it is a known treatment, the cost and the market's availability is completely out of spec. And we think that we can compete with this in a great way, but it will only just introduce our range of biologics produced in the same platform.
What stage is the treatment at this point? Are you at the preclinical stage, or are you actually treating patients at this time?
Preclinical at this stage. We have done a whole bunch of in vitro testing, and a lot of cell lines have been tested. And to speak honestly, I think Immobazyme will then hand off to a partner. It's quite serendipitous that Task is here, and it would definitely be a conversation to be had. But to take that through the approval pipeline is the next step.
Thank you for that introduction. That's Ethan Hunter, the CEO and co-founder of Immobazyme, the winner of the centrifuge competition. But there was also a student winner in that centrifuge competition, and it was Dr. Carla Eksteen, PhD. Carla, welcome to BioTalk. And Johann, any brief introduction you'd like to make about Carla?
I think just to paint the picture that most of us in any kind of 3 to 5 year a role where you need to look 3 to 5 years in the future will know that personalized medicine is the next big thing on the horizon, whether you use AI or other models. A big part of what Carla is developing has to do with that personalized medicine regimen for cancer patients. So it's really important. And instead of using the same big shotgun for every patient, you want to go in with a sniper and exactly say what is needed for who. And this is where Carla comes in. So Carla, thank you very much. We're excited to take you once again to Washington as well with us, more precise Rockville, but really looking forward to having you engage with some of the best universities in the world that will also be in and around the event.
Carla, welcome to BioTalk. Please introduce yourself, and then you can talk a little bit about your research.
Thanks, Rich and Johann. I just really want to take this opportunity as well to say thank you to EduVast, Task, and Westgrow. As a winner of the student opportunity, I'm able to go with to Maryland, and I've never been there. So it's also something really exciting to look forward to, and all the opportunities that it could possibly open up for us from an academic point. I am from Stellenbosch University. I received my PhD in 2022, also with the current supervisor that I am working with. We started off with basic cell culture, animal models, mice, and then after my PhD, I started the postdoc route. And then we really tried to move away from those and really started focusing on patient-based samples and patient-based research. But with that also came a lot of red tape, a lot of ethical approval, which obviously takes a lot more time. So we are currently in the proof of concept phase, working on generating all this data that we do need to get for our innovation. But a little bit of background, so I actually started off with sports science at Stellenbosch University for undergrad, but I had physiology as one of my majors. And then from honors on, I really started focusing on cancer research. It's something that a lot of us are exposed to in our day-to-day lives, whether it be family, friends. Since then, it was something I was very passionate about, started looking at chemotherapy mostly, looking at chemo-resistance pathways and mechanisms. And then a couple of years ago, last year, we started collaborating with oncologists at Cancer Care. So they're just around the corner from us. And in that, we're really able to focus on what the need is for oncologists and from cancer patients, making sure that our research actually stays clinically relevant. We also attend monthly molecular tumor board meetings with them. So really getting that exposure to treatments that are currently available for our patients, newer treatments that will be made available. And in that way, we're able to focus on what can matter, what can happen in the future, and not just focusing on the now. This is where our innovation or our attempt to establish a personalized medicine platform specifically for cancer patients has emerged from. So really looking at an individual tumor, doing a lot of experimental analysis, maybe looking at biomarkers present in the tumor and in the blood as kind of a predictor for immunotherapy, or in some cases still chemotherapy. But we know that the use of immunotherapy is kind of on the horizon. There are a few patients that already have successful treatments in South Africa, and we can see that it is kind of emerging and will be emerging for the next couple of years. So really focusing on biomarkers in the tumors that can predict whether patients will respond to this type of treatment.
Thanks for that introduction, Carla. Tell me a little bit about what you see as the primary differential advantage of your science and research compared to other people who are in personalized medicine now.
Our method is kind of just as an addition that can be used by other types of tests. I know NGS, or next generation sequencing, is up and coming in South Africa. It is very expensive. We tried to go into that route as well for our research. Unfortunately, it was just not financially feasible. So we're looking at something that's more staining based, looking at markers in the tumor, which doesn't require this expensive equipment or NGS, and that can be used as a guideline with those type of tests. So really just making it more financially reachable for more cancer patients.
And is it your goal to try to form a company at some point to help commercialize this technology?
Yes, so we have had some talks with Innovators, our technology transfer office at Stellenbosch University. They're helping us to guide our proof of concept and the idea that we have. So we are hoping to also get a spin-out company or just license our innovation.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. And I think you'll find the BioHealth Capital Region conference very informative. You'll probably find some partners there you can talk science with and maybe give you some hints around commercialization of your technology, or potentially look at licensing partners in the United States. That's the goal. We've been talking with Johann de Bruyn, who's the CEO of Task, who is actually the sponsor of the two winners coming to the BioHealth Capital Region Forum in probably about 5 weeks now, in September the 17th. We're not that far away, so it's coming up pretty quickly. And we have Ethan Hunter, COO and co-founder of Immobazyme, and Dr. Carla Eksteen, PhD student winner of the first Centrifuge Business Plan competition. So I think that you're both going to be in for a treat, as we say, as we come. One of the things we're going to do with Ethan, though, before he comes to Maryland, is we're going to do a little pitch coaching, which we do with all of the Crab Trap finalists. For your benefit, Ethan, we have 5 winners that we will select that will enter, and they can be from anywhere in the world as well, but you're guaranteed a spot. So we're going to actually have 6 people in the competition this year. Immobazyme is going to be the 6th. You don't have to compete based on the relationship we developed with Johann and Task. So you have an advantage there. But once you get into the competition, it's all fair game. Everybody's against one another. I'm sure you'll do very well. So we'll talk a little bit about the pitch coaching session, which we can follow up with. And then also maybe in advance, we'll see if there's other strategic people that might be advantageous that we can set up you and Carla with, just to set up some meetings for you while you're in the Maryland area. So Johann, any words of wisdom you have for Ethan and Carla?
Get lots of sleep before the time. Don't be shy, and definitely brush up on your networking skills. It's very, very important. It's up to you. People are not going to come to you necessarily. So make sure that you're able to work the room, as they say in the networking books.
Even though business cards are out of play these days, it probably doesn't hurt to have them. And it probably doesn't hurt to have like a one-pager, a very short one-pager that you have available. We're going to have a literature table there, and you can put your literature on that table. But you can't sell from an empty case, as they say. So you're going to be selling, so make sure you have something that you can hand to the people that you'd like to make contact with. So we're excited to have you. This will be a first. Maybe this is something we continue from year to year. And we've talked about potentially having an international competition, having the U.S. competition, and then have an international competition where people from all over the world compete against each other. And maybe the winner from that enters into the Crab Trap competition. So you guys, Ethan, you're getting an early start on this. You don't have to compete against people from Israel or Netherlands or South Korea. You're just going to be competing against other potentially U.S. companies, even though we have had Israeli and South Korean companies in the competition in the past. So congratulations to both of you. We look forward to seeing you both live and in person after your 11-hour flight, which is one of the longest there is to any part in the world. So, Johann, thank you very much for bringing us both Ethan and Carla. You have any closing words you'd like to have for our listeners?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully Africa can also show that we've got great talent and great innovation that we can bring to market. And I'm sure these two will more than do us proud. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Ethan, any closing words from Immobazyme standpoint?
Thanks for having me here. And again, to task Johann and his team, as well as Westgrow and Eduvos, for the leg up to be the sixth team competing. And like Johann says, I reckon South Africa can show the world what we have to offer. And I look forward to the opportunity. So thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. And Dr. Carla Eksteen, any closing words, Carla?
Likewise, like Ethan just said, we are really just grateful for this opportunity. As Johann said, getting enough sleep and brushing up on these networking skills, something I'll definitely have to practice and get comfortable with. I'm just grateful for this opportunity and really looking forward to seeing you there.
I think you're both going to do very well. So congratulations again. We look forward to seeing you soon. And Johann, thank you for bringing this opportunity to the BioHealth Capital Region.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you very much for you and your team as well.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.